Hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into our series dedicated to the Bay Area restaurant scene with just one of the wildest fusion dishes that I've come across in a long while, which is a Korean Bulgogi Philly cheesesteak sandwich, inspired by the one and only version found at Saucy Asian here in Emeryville, California. Now, if you're like me and you're thinking that's just a whole lot of words that were thrown together into a sandwich, then yeah, that's pretty much what this is. But despite this being a jumbled up masterpiece of Asian fusion, it honestly actually makes a lot of sense, and frankly, I don't know why I've never come across anything like this before. For those who are unfamiliar, the Korean barbecue beef bulgogi is certainly no stranger to this channel. You may recognize it from our gimbap, bibimbap, and japchae recipes from a while back. It is comprised of a thinly sliced piece of flank steak, iconically marinated in a grated Asian pear and soy sauce marinade, then barbecued, or in our case, wok seared, for a smoky and crisp finish. And if that sounds at all like the thinly sliced steak found in a Philly cheesesteak sandwich, then you would be correct. It is in fact very similar. As with every time that we have approached the bulgogi beef in a recipe, however, we will once again be faced with the challenge of reproducing not only the char of an open flame barbecue, but also the thinly sliced quality that is iconic to bulgogi steak without the help of a meat slicer. Finally, to round this all out, we'll also be touching on, of course, all of the iconic things that must go into this sandwich for it to be a cheesesteak, including our hoagie roll, sliced onion, and of course, good old-fashioned American cheese. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so diving right in, we're kicking things off here first with our steak, since there is a two-part marinade involved here that's going to need a good bit of extra time today. Before me here, I have this gorgeous piece of flank steak courtesy of Prather Meats here in Oakland. For the Bay Area locals, find them at the West Oakland Farmers Market right next to our Woo Can Cook pop-up. As with any time that we work with flank steak, I'm taking some extra steps to aid in creating the most tender piece of beef that I can make, since this is a pretty chewy cut of beef. This starts first with the way that we slice the steak, with as many cuts against the grain as possible. This today is going to start with just 3 cuts with the grain to give us these nice strips, followed by horizontal slices to achieve as thin a piece of beef as I can get. We're looking for paper thin, like so. I've personally found that it helps a lot if the steak is still partially frozen for this, because it helps the knife pass through the meat with a little more accuracy. Then next, we're going to do a bit of velveting here. This is a half teaspoon of baking soda that I'm combining with about a 1/4 cup of water, mixed into a slurry, then worked into our steak for about 15 minutes before draining. This is going to help tenderize the beef via some food science that I am in no way qualified to dive into further, but what matters here is that baking soda has a metallic aftertaste to it, so I'm also draining off some of the residual baking soda slurry after our 15 minutes of velveting are up too. Moving on, next up, we're diving into our marinade here, starting off with some aromatic veggies. This is 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic, followed by 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon of fine minced ginger, heading into our marinade bowl with our now drained and velveted steak. Then up next, now this should be a single Asian pear peeled and grated into our marinade today. What I have here once again is a Fuji apple because I forgot to grab some at the market today. I personally don't love this as a sub because I found that Fuji apples have a little bit more sugar than an Asian pear, but in a pinch, it'll do just fine. Diving into our liquid marinade next, we're going with a soy sauce forward marinade since it is, after all, the key ingredient to our dish. This is 4 tablespoons or a 1/4 cup of soy sauce here to start, followed by a single teaspoon of dark soy sauce and a single tablespoon of brown sugar to round out our malted sweetness. Finally, rounding out our marinade, this is 2 tablespoons of sesame oil for some nice added fats. Then I'm mixing this to combine and setting aside to marinate for 30 minutes. As this marinates, I'm slicing up our remaining veggies for our cheesesteak. This is 1/2 of a medium white onion. I've become more and more of a fan of this technique of breaking the onion layers apart for slicing because it yields a more even slice. It takes an extra 30 seconds and easily yields a superior sliced onion. Last up, this is about 3 green onions that I'm dividing by whites and greens, then slicing up thinly. Finally, before we head over to the stove, this is just a bit of QP mayo that I'm spreading on my hoagie rolls for our griddle coming up, then we're moving on to our bulgogi next. Next up, over on the stove, I have my wok heating up over medium heat for our wok sear. Please excuse this slightly shaky cam, as I recall my monopod snapped in half literally right after I finished filming this. I'm adding my steak to the wok about 12 pieces at a time, searing for about 2.5 minutes, then tossing with the wok tilted downward for wok hay. In my experience, this has been the best results that I've been able to achieve in reproducing a barbecued char without a barbecue. Is it a traditionally Korean technique? No, probably not, but unless you've got a barbecue and a backyard, it's about as close as we'll manage today, I think. I'm doing a bit of batch cooking on this sear today, so on my final batch, I'm adding all of the steak back to the wok, then combining with my sliced onion and sauteing for an additional 3 to 4 minutes until translucent. For this reason, it is absolutely okay if your steak is still a little rare coming out of the sear. Quick talkie break for the camera, then I'm removing my steak from the wok and setting aside for a moment while we set up our griddle next. Okay, so for our purposes today, I'm going to be finishing this on a cast iron griddle, preheated over medium-low heat to mimic a flat top. If you don't have one of these though, a plain old skillet will also do just fine, although you may have to be a little bit more clever with working around the physical space though. I'm starting by adding my bulgogi to the griddle in strips, then topping in American cheese and covering for about 45 seconds until our cheese melts. Now, personally, I'm more preferential to keeping this melted cheese right on top, but I did notice that the Saucy Asian version has combined the cheese to make it a little bit more cohesive, so we're gonna go with this method instead. Once combined, I'm shifting my bulgogi to the colder half of the griddle, then adding our hoagie rolls face down for an additional minute so that they may toast in the juices of our beef here. Once nice and toasty, I'm giving this a flip, then adding our steak topped with our white and green onions, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so I'll start first by mentioning that I have had a lot of Philly cheesesteak sandwiches in my life, ranging from the authentic mind-blowing ones from Philadelphia, the mediocre ones from the Philadelphia airport, and everything in between. Shout out to the local legend Italian Delight in Nevada with the whole steak, y'all. So this is not any of those things, obviously because it has bulgogi steak in it. But all of this said, good lord, this was a good sandwich, y'all. The bulgogi is rich and umami packed from our marinade, which is directly a result of it being an at-home bulgogi recipe that I've been dialing in for several years. Then I think the saute to the onions along with the steak rather than separately makes for a more flavorful onion since it's been tossed in the bulgogi marinade along with it. In addition though, I also think it's the little things that compound to create a great sandwich. The toasted hoagie roll topped with melty American cheese and the razor thin slice to the steak really just drives the whole thing home for me. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to the channel, this one is part of a larger series that we've been doing that's dedicated to reproducing foods from the Bay Area restaurant scene, so definitely check out that series next if you haven't yet because there's a lot of these. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice YouTubers, and I'll see you soon. Bye.